Hi everyone, my name is Kevin and this is Kevin's Corner, and today I'm bringing you part 2 of my Gunpla journey. I feel like I need to make an apology because part 2 took way longer than I thought to film and to edit and put together. I had a small family emergency. My grandma had a stroke, so I had to go to Guatemala. I'll put it right now a map of where Guatemala is. So I went there with whatever vacation hours I had saved up to go see my grandma because she had a stroke. So, I was helping my family take care of her and, provide support as much as I could before I had to leave. So that's why it took longer to make this video. Also, I've been making a couple of video game reviews. You can check out my latest review of Holy Potatoes, a weapon shop, which you can check out on cultureofgaming.com. So let's get started. A big reason why I'm making this video series, not only to record how I got into Gunpla, but also just a discussion around how you got into Gundam, how you got into Gundam model kits, or even the mangas or the anime. I think it's kind of cool that fans have this shared love for a certain property and they're able to share it online or with each other in person, and I think that's a great thing. And I think it's important to not only be able to share that love and also express the love for certain IPs, certain properties, certain anime, mangas, whatever you want to call it, because so much of the fandom often falls down to toxicity, and I don't want it to that only to take over the discussion, even though toxic behavior and things that you hate always seem the loudest and always seem to get the biggest attention online. But we also got to remember that the love for what you like and the love for certain properties and shows and what they mean to you is always going to be stronger than that toxicity. So that's why I love to talk and create a discussion between the fans, people who watch my YouTube videos, to be able to talk to them and be able, hey, what is it that you love? What experience have you noticed that we all kind of share in common? Because I think that's kind of cool. And for some reason, if you're watching this before part 1, I highly recommend you go see part 1 first. I think it's kind of important to discuss about how I got into anime, how you got into anime, how maybe we share similar experiences, because I feel that love for anime builds upon why I got into Gundam model kits later on. So go watch part 1 and then come back and see part 2. And without further delay, let's get into part 2 of my Gunpla journey. Like I said in my previous video, getting into anime was a weird experience in my life, but not that different from other stories I've heard. People often discover anime at school, through television, or randomly on a streaming platform, but most often than not, they're introduced to the medium via a friend or family member. Either way, Gundam became a main staple in my life, with Gundam Seed and Gundam Seed Destiny being the shows I watched in high school. I headed off to college where I met a great group of fellow geeks who loved all kinds of hobbies. College became the first time I ever experienced a LAN party, Magic the Gathering, and several other board games like Bang. Bang was one of my favorite ones. Anime started becoming more easily available in the mid to late 2000s. While not as a streaming service yet, it wasn't difficult to find a group of people who would work tirelessly to translate anime. I would go to sites like tokyotosho.info and Torrent Anime. At the time, it was the only way I could watch anime other than getting a copy of the files or Blu-rays from my colleagues. So naturally, when Gundam 00 was released, I would wait every week to download the latest episode. It was my first time that I would follow an anime series as it was being released in Japan. With the rise of social media platforms like Facebook, it made it possible to have conversations online with other fans about the episode of that week. Just as a side note, Facebook at the time was only available to college students before it opened up to everyone else. I found a great deal of fun and interesting conversations on Gundam 00 via forums, Facebook, 4chan, and other anime-related websites. It was always interesting to find out small tidbits here and there about the Gundam series from other fans. I'll be honest, during my college years, I would only lurk on message boards to see what people would write. Online interactions with people that I didn't know seemed dangerous, as people would become abusive to one another so easily. However, now I'm not simply afraid to discuss what I love and share it via a tweet or make a YouTube video about it. Okay, let's get back on track. Gundam 00 was a fun anime to watch every week. In case you don't know what makes Gundam 00 unique among other Gundam shows, well, it is unique in the sense that they try to use current day politics at the time that it was created, and it was invoking a familiar trope of a squad of young Gundam pilots seeking to change the world. It carries various similarities to Gundam Wing, but at this time I realized that Gundam, like Final Fantasy, would carry familiar tropes between each new entry. I got the synopsis from Amazon that summarizes the show. Quote, "The year is 2307 AD. While the Earth's reserves of fossil fuels have been depleted, humanity has obtained a new, nearly infinite source of energy to replace them in the form of large-scale, solar-powered generation systems based on 3 huge orbital elevators. However, the benefits of this system are only available to a handful of major powers and their allies. These orbital elevators belong to 3 superpower blocks: the Union, the Human Reform League, and the AEU. These confederations continue to play a grand zero-sum game for the sake of their own prestige and prosperity. Thus, even in the 24th century, humanity has yet to unite as one. In this world of unceasing conflict, a primed armed organization steps forward, declaring their intention to eliminate war through martial force. Using the power of their mobile suits combatively, a series of 4 high-powered machines, each dubbed Gundam, the paramilitary organization known as Celestial Being takes the world stage, beginning armed interventions within all the world's nations. End quote. You have to remember, at the time, I was a college student, so the fact that Gundam 00 had pseudo-politics surrounding solar energy, that really fascinated me. I thought it was super interesting how solar energy was being used to hoard power and political strength among bigger nations and then smaller nations. Bigger nations would have all the solar power, would have allies, but then smaller nations, in order to tap into that power, would have to lose their independence and become dependent on a bigger axis of power. And I thought it was really topical. It made it really more interesting. And the fact that the United States was going through its own energy crisis made the show that more relevant. I find it funny that around the same time, or I think after the show, the current president at the time, Barack Obama, created the New Energy for America Act, which, heavily invested United States money into finding new sources of reliable, renewable energy. So after all these years of watching mechs battle it out on the field and occasionally playing a Gundam game or two, I realized something. I had never built a Gundam of my own. I had been aware of Gundam model kits since the 90s, as you would see them in certain anime or Japanese themed stores here and there, but being a kid who prioritized video games above all else, I didn't have the income at the time to support buying toys or other collectibles. However, in college, I did have a bit more money than usual after paying for books, rent, etc. So I decided to buy 2 Gundam model kits, and you guessed it, yes, they were based on Gundam 00. My first 2 Gundam model kits I ever bought were Gundam Exia and Gundam Exia Trans Am. Now, at this point, you have to remember, I was big on the Gundam show, but didn't know anything about Gundam model kits. Only until recently did I start taking Gundam model kits more seriously, but I want to save that conversation for my last video in my Gunpla journey. So, I built my Gundam Exias on my own without any proper tools, or knowing what the proper methods and techniques to building these things were. I did the best that I could, but if you're looking at the pictures, you can see that the stickers are poorly placed. I did not have clippers for the parts themselves, and I would leave the excess plastic from the runners on. For being my first Gundam model kit, and looking back at them, I feel almost silly on the poor craftsmanship. However, I take it as a learning experience, and I still keep them around to remind myself how far I've come. Plus, I think it's kind of neat to look back at an earlier project and see your skills and progress evolve over time. If you look through my channel, you'll find older videos I did in a much more rough state that will end up discouraging me from making more YouTube videos. In high school, I would direct and write scripts for a YouTube channel called Welcome to the EMK. Friends and family would help out by acting in our videos while I directed, and my friend Jesse would provide the camera work and editing. I always felt like my videos weren't properly thought out and were just plainly bad and cringe-worthy. But like all things, I learned, I adapted, I asked for help, and I improved. I love my Gundam Exia. It's crudely built, but I have so much emotional attachment to it because this was my first Gundam model kit, and then I ended up making the Trans Am version of Exia also. And just with these 2, I realized I've come a long way since I started taking Gundam model kit building more seriously. And it's almost laughable because the quality in these guys is so bad, but at the same time I can't throw them away because it just shows how far I've come. And after I built these 2, I ended up getting an HG Freedom Gundam and an HG Gundam 00 Riser, but the Freedom Gundam came out so bad too that I ended up being discouraged for it. So I put the Gundam 00 Riser back in the box, I put it underneath my bed, and let it sit there for 4 years. Until recently, I rediscovered it, and I told myself, you know what? I want to take my time to learn how to properly build these guys, sand them down, paint them, panel lining, whatever, right? Whatever I could do to make them better, I wanted to learn. And in the process of making that Gundam 00 Riser, I ended up falling back in love with Gundam model kits, and now I kind of always want to be working with Gundam model kits, from this point on, because I love the feeling that you can create these and kind of personalize them and put a little bit more effort in just putting a Lego set together. So after finding that kit under my bed and building them and getting back into Gundam model making, I fell in love again. And there was a new anime on the horizon, and I was like, you know what? This is a good time to get back into Gundam, watch a new show, and start making these guys again. Once again, Gundam entered another phase in my life as Iron-Blooded Orphans became a hit, and I was a little late to the party on that one. I had stopped watching anime for a long time, but I was pleasantly surprised that new streaming platforms made it easier to rekindle that love. So a combination of watching the show and finding that kit made me realize two things. One, I'm getting old. Two, I have more patience and a little bit more disposable income. Finally, almost as if fate was building up to this moment, or the most likely answer, I was ready to take my Gundam building skills to the next level. The journey has been both incredible and eye-opening of this other side of the Gundam fandom known as Gunpla. But let's save that story for my last video as I go into detail about all the things Gunpla has taught me. How did you get into Gunpla? What was your first build? I would love to know, and please leave your responses in the comment section below. Thanks for watching and helping me grow this channel by subscribing and giving a like or dislike. You can also watch me stream on Sunday mornings between 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. Pacific time at twitch.com/kevinscorner. Come hang out and we can chat. You can also find the link to my Twitch channel in the description down below. My name is Kevin, and this has been Kevin's Corner, geeking since 9 to 4.